The sun had barely risen over the valley when the first horns echoed through the hills, a sound as sharp and cold as the steel of swords that followed. The villagers of Eldwine knew what it meant. They had heard the rumors, stories of a lord whose cruelty was whispered about in fearful tones from hamlet to hamlet. Now the stories had become real. A line of soldiers in black and crimson approached on horseback, armor gleaming beneath the morning light, banners snapping in the wind. The people abandoned their fields, scattering toward their homes, but there was nowhere to run. Lord Edrin had come. Lord Edrin, known across the lands as the Iron Wolf, was a noble in title but a warlord in truth. Born of a lesser house, he had clawed his way to power with blood and fire, taking what others would not surrender. His rise had left burned villages, shattered clans, and broken oaths in its wake. To him, mercy was a weakness, kindness a fool's indulgence. His gaze turned to Eldwine not for its wealth, there was little of that, but because it stood between his growing domain and the southern trade roads. He wanted it and so he would take it. The village had no army, no walls, only farmers, herders, and craftsmen who lived quiet lives by the riverbank. They had heard of the Iron Wolf's approach 3 days before, when a lone traveler came limping into the square, bloodied and half-mad with fear. He had spoken of villages to the north razed to the ground, of men hung from trees, and of women dragged away. The elders gathered in council, but there was no solution. No one would come to their aid. The closest baron had fled his own keep weeks ago. They were alone. Among the villagers was a young woman named Anwen. Barely 19, she was known throughout Eldwine not only for her beauty, long raven hair, bright amber eyes, and skin the color of warm honey, but for her spirit. When others bowed their heads in fear or grief, she stood straight, her chin lifted. She worked as hard as any man, tending her father's sheep after his death, and was quick with her words when men from nearby villages tried to woo her. Many had tried and all had failed. To Anwen, love would not be bought with fine words or gifts. It must be earned. As the soldiers poured into Eldwine, Anwen stood among the crowd gathered in the square. The village elder, a frail man named Harwin, stepped forward to plead for mercy, his voice trembling. Lord Edrin, atop a great black stallion, surveyed the villagers with cold amusement. His hair was dark, streaked with gray at the temples, and his face was hard, all sharp angles and thin lips that rarely smiled. His eyes were a piercing blue, and when they landed on Anwen, they lingered. "You will submit," Edrin said, his voice carrying easily over the square. "Your village belongs to me now. Those who resist will die." There was no resistance. The people were too few, their tools no match for swords. The soldiers began their work, confiscating food, claiming livestock, dragging men to forced labor. The villagers watched in silent misery, helpless to stop the pillage. Edrin dismounted, striding through the square with deliberate steps. He stopped before Anwen, eyes narrowing. "And who is this?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. His scouts had told him of the girl with fire in her spirit. Harwin, voice shaking, replied, "That is Anwen, daughter of Bran, my lord." "Beautiful," Edrin said, circling her. "And proud. I can see it in her eyes." He smirked. "Such pride will not last." Anwen did not flinch under his gaze. Though fear coiled in her belly, she forced herself to meet his eyes. "We have done nothing to deserve this," she said, her voice steady. Edrin chuckled. "Deserve has nothing to do with it, girl. The strong take what they will. The weak endure." He reached out, fingers brushing a lock of her hair. She recoiled, her breath catching. Edrin's smile widened, a predator toying with prey. "I have taken this village," he said, addressing the crowd. "And now I take this woman as my bride." A murmur rose from the villagers, shock, disbelief. Anwen's heart pounded. She wanted to scream, to run, to fight. But what could she do? Around her, Edrin's soldiers watched with idle menace, swords ready. Her people were helpless. If she defied him, they would pay the price. Harwin tried to protest. "My lord, she is but a girl." "Silence," Edrin snapped. "She will wed me. It is done." Anwen's mother, Elira, rushed forward, tears streaming down her face. "Please, my lord, spare her. Take me instead." Edrin laughed cruelly. "I have no use for withered fruit when I can claim the ripe." He seized Anwen's arm, his grip bruising. "Prepare her," he commanded his men. "At dawn the ceremony will be held. Let all witness her submission." Anwen's mind reeled as she was dragged away. In the space of a moment, her life had been shattered. No choice, no voice, no hope. Her mother followed, sobbing, until the soldiers barred her way. That night, Anwen sat alone in a cold chamber within the old manor house that now served as Edrin's seat. Her wrists were bound, though she had not struggled. What was the point? Her heart ached for her mother, her friends, her home. How could she save them? She thought of escape, but even if she slipped past the guards, where could she go? The roads were patrolled. Any attempt to flee would bring death not just to her, but to others. She stared at the rough-hewn walls, biting her lip until it bled. The fire in her spirit had not died, but it was trapped, caged by a fate she could not alter. Dawn came far too soon. The soldiers came with rough hands, washing her, forcing her into a gown of crimson silk. Gold bangles were placed upon her wrists and throat. When they led her to the square, the villagers were already gathered, forced to attend the grim ceremony. Edrin stood at the front, clad in black and silver, a thin crown upon his brow. Anwen's legs felt leaden, but she walked, head held high. If she must endure this humiliation, she would do so with what dignity she could. She met her mother's tearful gaze and managed a faint smile, a silent promise that she would not break. The village priest, cowed into obedience, muttered the rites. Edrin clasped Anwen's hand tightly, possessively. When the final words were spoken, he turned to the crowd, a wolfish grin upon his face. "Let all know," he proclaimed, "that this woman is mine. Any man who touches her dies." A cheer rose from the soldiers. The villagers remained silent, their hearts heavy. Edrin leaned close to Anwen, his breath hot against her ear. "Now, wife," he whispered. "We begin." Anwen's stomach twisted, but she forced her expression into calm defiance. She would endure. For her mother. For her people. The fire within her would not be so easily quenched. The Iron Wolf had claimed her, but he had not broken her. Not yet. The cold silk of the crimson gown clung to Anwen's skin like damp mist, whispering with every movement as she was led back to the chamber where she had slept not at all. The manor stones seemed to absorb warmth from the air and light from the sky. Even the morning sun could not pierce the gloom pressing in around her. Her hair had been combed and twisted into braids she had not chosen. Gold circlets adorned her wrists, her neck, her ears. She looked like a queen, but she felt like a prisoner. No, not a prisoner. A possession. Two serving women, one middle-aged and trembling, the other barely older than a child, moved silently around her, adjusting folds of the gown, readying knots. Neither met her eyes. Anwen did not speak either. What would she say? That she wanted to run? That her chest ached with rage? That her bones were heavy with the helplessness of her people, of her mother who had cried through the night, begging the soldiers to let her see her daughter just once more? All her words had been carried away by the wind. All her pleas had dissolved into the silence of fear. When they had finished dressing her, the older woman bowed her head and whispered, "He will expect you to kneel when the rites begin." Anwen looked at her for the first time. Her hands, thin and veined, trembled as they adjusted a final pin near Anwen's ear. "Did they make you kneel too?" Anwen asked. The woman did not answer. The child turned her face away. Anwen clenched her jaw. Her spine straightened of its own accord, the fire within her still unburnt. She wanted to tear the silk from her skin, to run barefoot into the hills, to take a blade and draw it across Edrin's throat before the vow ever left her lips. But she had no blade. No army. No allies. Only herself. And the one thing he could not take, her will. In her heart, as the drums outside began to pound and the horn called the villagers once more to the square, she made her vow. It was not spoken aloud, not even mouthed. It formed in the marrow of her bones, in the hollow just behind her ribs, where sorrow had carved space for it to live. "I will not belong to him. I will not forget. I will not bow in my heart, not ever." They led her to the courtyard where a horse waited, draped in black velvet. Soldiers lined the stone path. Villagers watched from the square, silent, eyes downcast. Even the children had been hushed. Harwin, the old elder, stood near the platform erected overnight for the ceremony, leaning on his cane like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Her mother was not there. She had been locked inside their home, a guard posted at the door. Anwen did not cry. Her tears had dried hours ago. What filled her now was not sorrow, it was steel. Cold, sharp and ready. Lord Edrin stood waiting on the platform in a tunic of silver-threaded black, a sword belted at his waist as if he were about to take a city, not a wife. When he saw her, his lips curved in a smile that did not reach his eyes. He looked at her the way a man might look at a prized hunting falcon, freshly caught and about to be tamed. "You are radiant," he said as she joined him. "Your eyes shine like fire." She did not thank him. He did not seem to expect it. He took her hand, lifting it high for all to see. "This day she becomes mine. This village becomes my stronghold." This union marks the dawn of a new rule. The priest stood to one side, brow sweaty, voice cracking as he read the vows from a scroll that shook slightly in his hands. The words were ancient, meant to bind two hearts in sacred unity. Anwen heard them but did not let them root. To her, they were meaningless. No gods would bless this. No love breathed here. When the priest asked if she would take this man as her husband, the silence stretched. Edrin's hand tightened on hers. "I will," she said, voice low. The crowd stirred. Some wept. Others clenched their fists. But no one moved. No one could. Edrin grinned, victorious, and answered in kind. The priest pronounced them bound, and Edrin seized her waist and kissed her, not a gentle kiss of affection, but a claim staked in full view of all. Anwen endured it without flinching. Not because she accepted it, but because she would not give him the satisfaction of recoil. The feast that followed was bitter in its festivity. Tables had been hastily set in the square, filled with food taken from the villagers' own stores. Wine poured freely for the soldiers. Musicians played songs none had the heart to dance to. Anwen sat beside Edrin, silent. He introduced her with pride, like a general unveiling his newest prize. She smiled when necessary, but her eyes did not shine for him. Late into the evening, as lanterns swung from trees and laughter grew louder among drunken soldiers, Anwen slipped away. Edrin had turned his attention to a hunting story, boasting to his captains about a stag he once felled with a single arrow. She walked quietly past the tables, past the guards too distracted to notice, and into the shadows behind the old chapel. There, beneath the great elm tree where her father once carved her initials into the bark, she fell to her knees. The silence wrapped around her, deep and gentle. Her hands pressed to the earth. She had not wept at the altar, not during the feast. But now, in the dark where no one could see, she let herself break. Her father's voice came to her memory like the wind, soft, fierce. "Your heart is not a thing to be given lightly. It is a flame, Anwen. Guard it. Feed it with truth. Let no man steal it." She clenched the grass in her fists. "I did not give it to him," she whispered. "And I never will." A footstep behind her made her freeze. She rose quickly, brushing her skirt. A young man stood at the edge of the trees, a boy she had known all her life. Ghanian, son of the smith, with dark eyes and soot-stained hands. He had once offered her a ring made of twisted copper and wildflowers. She had kissed his cheek but said no. She had always imagined a different path for herself. Now that path was buried. "You shouldn't be out alone," he said softly. "He'll be looking for you." "I needed air." "I know." He hesitated, then said, "We wanted to fight." When he arrived, there were 6 of us with old blades, pitchforks. But your mother begged us not to. She looked away. "She said if we resisted, he'd burn the village," Ghanian went on. "She said your life was worth more than any foolish stand. She said you were strong enough to outlast him." Anwen swallowed. "I don't feel strong." "You are. We all see it. That's why he chose you." She met his gaze. "He thinks he owns me now." "No man can own the wind, Anwen." The words settled in her bones like embers. She reached out, took Ghanian's hand for just a moment, then let it go. "Thank you." When she returned to the manor, the halls were quieter. Edrin was not in the chamber yet. She removed the bangles, the necklace, the pins. She set them in a tidy row on the table beside the fire, one by one, as though shedding armor she never wanted. She looked at her reflection in the polished mirror above the basin. Her eyes were her own. The face staring back was not a wife. It was a survivor. When Edrin entered, he looked at the empty vanity and frowned. "Where are the ornaments?" "I removed them. I gave them to you. I didn't want them." He crossed the room in 2 strides and seized her arm, but Anwen turned to him fully, her gaze steady. "You may have married me. You may even drag me to your bed. But I will never belong to you." Edrin's expression darkened. "Careful, girl. I'm no girl. And I will not break for you." He stared at her for a long moment. Then he released her roughly. "You'll learn. In time." She said nothing. He turned, poured wine from a flagon, and drank deeply. The night passed in tension, but he did not touch her again. In the days that followed, Anwen played her part carefully. She attended feasts, nodded at the right times, wore what was demanded of her. But each act was a mask, a shadow. Beneath it, her mind worked. She listened to the soldiers' chatter. She memorized guard rotations. She studied maps when Edrin left his war table unattended. Slowly she began to gather pieces. The silent vow she made beneath the elm tree had not faded. It had deepened. She would reclaim herself. Or she would burn his empire to ash. The sun had long since dipped below the jagged hills, leaving the sky veiled in dark velvet. Stars glittered faintly above, cold and watchful, their light distant and uncaring. Within the old stone manor of Eldwine, candles flickered in iron sconces along the corridors, their flames small against the looming shadows. Somewhere far below, the last drunken shouts of soldiers echoed faintly, dulled by heavy doors and thick walls. The feast was ending. The villagers had been sent home. The music had fallen into silence. The night had come, and with it, the moment she could no longer delay. Anwen stood alone in the chamber that was now called hers, though nothing in it belonged to her. The carved bed draped in dark silks. The hearth where a low fire smoldered. The heavy oaken door with its iron lock. Even her reflection in the tall mirror seemed a stranger to her. She wore a gown of black and red silk, chosen not by her hand but by his steward. Her hair hung loose down her back, brushed until it gleamed. Her feet were bare upon the cold stones. In the corner of the chamber, the small bundle lay hidden beneath folded linen, her only true possession. A narrow velvet pouch, worn with age, its cord frayed. Within it, an ancient token, a slender blade of obsidian, its surface etched with faint runes worn smooth by generations of fingers. The blade was no longer than her palm, sharp as a whisper. It had belonged to her mother's mother and her mother before her. Passed down not for war but for moments such as these. Anwen had found it that morning, tucked inside her mother's chest of linens, beneath a layer of coarse wool. No words had accompanied it. None were needed. She had tied the cord around her thigh beneath her gown, hidden from sight but close to her skin, the cool weight a steady reminder, she was not helpless. Not tonight. Footsteps sounded in the corridor outside, slow, measured. A hand rapped twice upon the door, not seeking permission but announcing its coming. The latch turned with a soft click. Anwen stood by the hearth, unmoving. Lord Edrin entered, clad not in armor now but in a dark tunic, his sword belt gone but his predatory air undiminished. His eyes, sharp as ever, swept the chamber before settling upon her. For a moment he paused, perhaps expecting some show of trembling, of fear or meekness. There was none. Anwen's face was calm, her gaze clear. "You are ready," he said. It was not a question. She inclined her head slightly, a gesture that could mean anything. Neither refusal nor welcome. Edrin closed the door behind him, barring it with a heavy bolt. The sound echoed through the room like a final word. "You surprise me," he remarked, crossing to the table where a decanter of dark wine waited. He poured a goblet, drinking deeply before continuing. "Many women would be weeping by now. I have seen it often enough." "I am not many women," Anwen replied softly. A smile curved his lips, not warm but edged. "So I see. That spirit of yours drew my eye from the first. Pride makes a fine jewel upon a beautiful throat." He set the goblet down and moved toward her with slow intent. His shadow loomed across the hearth, stretching tall against the stones. Anwen did not retreat. Her heart beat steady and strong, her mind sharpened by the weight of the token bound to her thigh. Edrin reached for her, fingers brushing her hair back from her face. His touch was gentle, but beneath it lay the surety of possession. "You belong to me now, Anwen. This night will seal it." She looked up at him, her voice even. "Do you believe that?" He tilted his head, amused. "It is not belief. It is fact. The ceremony was witnessed by all. The vow spoken. The rites performed. The law, the gods, and your own people would say as much." "And what of me?" she asked. A flicker passed through his eyes. "You will learn to accept it." Anwen let a faint smile touch her lips, not soft, not yielding. "Perhaps." He traced her cheekbone with one knuckle, pleased by her apparent composure. He did not see the currents beneath the surface. "Do you know," he murmured, "the first time I saw you in the square I thought, here is a prize worthy of conquest. But now I think otherwise. You are not simply to be conquered. You are to be claimed, utterly." Anwen's gaze did not waver. "Perhaps you will find it harder than you think." At that, his smile widened. He took her hand and led her toward the bed. The silk sheets whispered as they moved. The firelight danced upon stone and fabric, casting shifting patterns that seemed to watch and listen. As he turned from her to unfasten his tunic, Anwen moved silently. Her fingers brushed the fold of her gown, finding the hidden slit. In a single breath, she drew the blade from its pouch, the obsidian cool and alive in her hand. The old runes seemed to shimmer faintly as if aware of what was to come. Edrin sensed the change in the air, turning just in time to see her facing him, the blade in her grasp. He froze, eyes narrowing. You would threaten your lord and husband? He asked, voice low with warning. I would remind you, she replied, her tone calm, that vows spoken under duress are hollow, that the heart does not yield so easily, and that some legacies run deeper than your titles or your swords. For a long moment they faced each other, two predators in a cage of stone. The fire crackled softly, the only sound. Then Edrin laughed, not cruelly this time, but with a kind of reluctant admiration. You are indeed no common girl. The blade did not waver. I could call the guards, he said. Have you disarmed? Chained? You could, Anwen answered. But you would lose more than you gained. Think carefully. I may wear your ring. I may sit at your side before the court. But if you take what is not freely given, you will make an enemy of me. One who knows your house, your plans, your weaknesses. Is that what you wish for your new wife? He studied her, blue eyes cold, calculating. His pride warred with caution. You dare much, he said at last. She inclined her head once more, deliberate. I dare only what must be dared. A long silence stretched between them, taut as a drawn bow. Finally, Edrin stepped back, hands raised. Very well. You may keep your blade. For now. Anwen lowered it slightly but did not sheath it. Not yet. You will come to me, he said, voice harder now, pride stung. Of your own will. In time. You will see the wisdom in it. Perhaps, she said once more. With a final glance, Edrin turned and unbarred the door. Before he left, he added, Be careful, Anwen. Not all magic is stronger than steel. And not all challenges are wise. She watched him go, the blade still steady in her hand. When the door closed behind him, she exhaled slowly, the tension draining from her limbs. Crossing to the bed, she knelt and carefully wrapped the blade once more in its pouch, tying it again to her thigh. The runes still pulsed faintly, a promise of protection, of old power not yet spent. The night stretched on, silent now. Anwen lay upon the silken sheets, wakeful, her mind sharp. She had not been broken. Not tonight. The vow remained unbroken and her will unclaimed. She had won this battle. The war, she knew, was only beginning. The night pressed heavy around the old stone manor, as if the air itself sensed what was to come. Somewhere deep in the bowels of the keep, the last of the drunken soldiers had finally staggered to sleep. The hall stood silent. The fires burned low. Above, in the Lord's chamber, Anwen lay wakeful upon the wide bed draped in crimson and black silk. Her breath was slow. Her heart was calm. The blade remained tied at her thigh, cool and pulsing faintly with ancient power. She had not planned this at first. When the forced vows were spoken and her fate was sealed, her vow had been only to endure, to bide her time, to find freedom or vengeance. But as the night wore on, a thought had grown sharper in her mind. Not escape alone. No, that would not be enough. A blow must be struck, not just for herself but for her people, for the land beneath her feet, for her mother locked in grief behind guarded doors. And the blade, her mother's token. It was no mere weapon of steel. It was a relic older than any in the village could recall. The etched runes, the strange cold of the stone, these were marks of the old ways before the lords and their banners, before swords ruled men's lives. Her mother had known. That was why she had hidden it in silence, leaving it to Anwen when words would not serve. Now the blade called to her as if it knew this was its hour. It was not steel that would serve this night. Not blood alone. Identity. Power. These things could be taken, if one had the will. A soft sound came from the corridor beyond the chamber door, the tread of booted feet, sure and steady. The door opened. Lord Edrin entered, alone this time. His gaze swept the chamber and found her waiting. No blade in hand now, no challenge raised. Only calm, unnerving calm. She sat upon the edge of the bed, hair falling in dark waves over her shoulders, amber eyes watchful, unreadable. He closed the door, bolting it behind him with a soft, final click. The predator's smile touched his lips again. So, he said, voice low. You waited after all. I wondered if the courage of the blade would fail you with the setting of the sun. Anwen tilted her head, her gaze steady. It has not. He moved closer. And will you resist me again? Will you raise that little token and defy your lord? No, she said softly. Not resist. Tonight I will take. The words halted him mid-step. His brow furrowed. Take. Her hand moved with fluid grace beneath the folds of her gown. The obsidian blade came forth, gleaming faintly though no light struck it. The runes shimmered softly as if alive. She rose to her feet, small against his towering form, but her presence filled the space between them. You think yourself the taker, she said, voice calm, sure? That power flows only one way. You are wrong. Edrin's smile faded. What trick is this? Anwen advanced one step, blade held low. The air shifted, colder now, charged with something unseen. Not steel against flesh but will against will. This blade, she said, was forged long before your house claimed this land. It was bound to my mother's line. To those who remember the old ways. You took my freedom. You bound me with false vows. Tonight I take your face. Before he could move, she spoke the words, ancient syllables whispered from a place beyond memory, passed through blood and bone. The runes flared with sudden light. Edrin lunged but too late. The blade cut no flesh, it passed through the air between them, slicing shadow, severing not skin but essence. A gasp tore from his throat. His arms flailed, fingers clawing at his face as a great emptiness opened within him. His voice rose in a strangled cry, half fury, half terror. Anwen watched with eyes like molten gold, her heart a steady drumbeat of purpose. The Lord's form wavered, blurred at the edges. His proud features, sharp cheekbones, cold blue eyes, the cruel mouth, wavered as if reflected in broken glass. And then with a sound like tearing silk, they were gone. Where his face had been, there was now only shadow, a dark, shifting void where no features could be seen. No eyes to glare, no mouth to command. Only a faceless husk remained, staggering back, clutching at the empty space with desperate fingers. A groan rose from that emptiness, not words, not understanding but raw sound, stripped of identity. Anwen lowered the blade, the light of the runes fading now to a low pulse. The ancient magic had done its work. She had taken from him what he prized most, his face, his name, his power. She could feel it now, not upon her skin but within, a strange heat behind her eyes, a weight upon her brow. She had not only unmade him, she had claimed a piece of what he was. A terrible thing. A necessary thing. Edrin stumbled, faceless, trapped. His arms flailed weakly as if seeking the door, the wall, some tether to reality. But he was undone. Anwen wasted no time. The chamber door was still barred from within. Moving quickly, she slipped the blade back into its pouch and bound it once more to her thigh. She crossed to the hearth, taking a cloak from the chair where it had been thrown. In the Lord's chest she found a heavy purse of coin, she took it. A map of the outer roads, she took that as well. Her hands moved swiftly, surely, as if guided by some deeper instinct. The faceless thing behind her groaned again, staggering into the wall, then collapsing to its knees. Farewell, my lord, she said quietly. You took what was not yours. Tonight it is undone. Drawing the hood of the cloak over her head, she moved to the window. It stood open, high above the courtyard but not beyond reach. Below, the manor wall was of rough stone, weathered and pitted. Her hands found holds. Her bare feet gripped the cold stone. Without a sound, she slipped out into the night. Down the wall, slow and steady, her breath sharp in her throat but her grip firm. At last her feet touched the earth. The courtyard was empty, the guards posted at the gate lulled by drink and weariness. She kept to the shadows, moving swift and low. At the outer gate, a lone sentry drowsed in a chair. Anwen passed unseen, the weight of the stolen face cloaking her in something other than mere shadow. The air seemed to part for her and no cry was raised. Beyond the gate, the road unspooled into darkness. The hills rose ahead, the old forest beyond. She did not pause. Her feet flew over the stones, cloak whipping behind her. The chill wind bit at her cheeks but she did not feel it. Her heart was flame. She was free. Not merely fled but victorious. She had taken power from him. The iron wolf, the faceless thing now left trapped in shadow. His threat was broken if only for a time. Yet even in triumph, she knew the danger had only begun. The blade was bound to her now, its old magic awake. The weight of his face, of identity, of essence, pressed upon her spirit. The roads were not safe. Word would spread when the sun rose and servants found their lord undone. Riders would hunt her. Magic would call to magic. But she would not stop. She had a vow to keep, a people to free, a mother to hold again. And so Anwen fled into the night, the cold stars gleaming high above, her path uncertain, her will unbroken. The hunted had become the hunter. And the face she had taken would serve her yet. The first rays of dawn had not yet touched the valley when the old manor awoke to chaos. Servants stumbled upon the faceless thing sprawled against the chamber wall, a hollow figure shivering with strange groans, clutching at emptiness where its face should have been. They screamed, drawing others. Soldiers burst into the room, swords drawn, but no enemy stood there, only their master, unmade. The Iron Wolf himself, brought low by some unknown sorcery. His proud form reduced to a creature of shadow and loss. The captain of the guard, a grim veteran named Morlen, looked upon the thing and felt a chill settle in his marrow. "What foul work is this?" he muttered. But no answer came, only the broken groans of the faceless lord. Morlen ordered the room sealed, the windows shuttered. The steward sent for the village priest, and for any old wise women who might know of such curses. But fear spread faster than answers. Word flew on swift tongues, first through the manor, then the barracks, then to the streets of the village. The lord had been struck down in the night. His new bride had vanished. Magic was loose in Eldwine. By noon, 100 riders had been sent to scour the land. From the river's edge to the forest trails, from farmstead to market road, they searched for a young woman with raven hair and amber eyes. Orders were clear: she was to be captured alive at all costs. What Edrin had lost he meant to reclaim. But no trace of her could be found. For Anwen had slipped into the heart of the wild woods beyond the hills. Her feet knew the old paths, though seldom walked even by the boldest hunter. There, beneath towering oaks and tangled underbrush, she paused to breathe. The blade was bound still at her thigh, but more than the blade had changed. The old magic had marked her. She could feel it in her blood now, a cold hum beneath her skin, an echo of what she had taken. His face was hers in part. Not merely as a mask but as a mantle. It was on the second day that she first tested it. A patrol of 5 soldiers rode the southern road, grim and weary. Anwen watched from the trees, breath held. They spoke of their orders, of the price on her head, of the strange horror left behind in the manor. "They say the Lord's soul was torn from him," one whispered. "That the witch bride cursed him." "She's no witch," another spat. "She's prey. And we will find her." Anwen stepped from the shadows then, drawing the hood of her cloak down, willing the magic to stir. A shiver passed through her, then the faint sensation of skin shifting, of something unseen settling over her features. When the soldiers turned to her, they stopped as if struck. For before them stood not a hunted girl, but the very image of their lord, sharp-cheeked, cold-eyed, cloaked in black. The face she had taken was hers to wear. "You, my lord?" one stammered, lowering his blade. Anwen's voice came low and sure, not her own but his. "You waste your time here. The witch fled west. Ride hard. Do not return until she is found." Without question they obeyed, spurring their mounts westward. Only when they were gone did Anwen let the illusion slip, her breath shuddering. The effort left her weary but not broken. The power was real. And now she had a weapon beyond steel. By dusk, the roads were thick with riders, word spreading like wildfire across the province. Town criers proclaimed the price for the girl, gold enough to buy 10 farms. But none knew her true nature now. Wearing his face, she walked among them unseen. Once a lowly wife in chains, now a shadow on the wind. In the markets, in the inns, soldiers spoke of the hunt. Anwen listened, gathering their plans. They searched the riverbanks, posted guards on the bridges, set traps along the forest paths. None thought to question the lone rider in black who passed among them with cold commands. Back in the manor, the faceless lord raged in secret. His hollow cries filled the sealed chamber. Though no words could shape from his throat, fury boiled within him. He knew, somehow he knew, that she had taken more than his face. His very power had fled. The servants dared not approach. Only the steward braved the threshold, whispering reports of the hunt. But every word deepened the lord's torment. Each failure was a wound. Each day she remained free, a further blow to his pride. At night, in the depths of the manor, strange rites were begun. Dark magics were called, sorcerers summoned from distant lands. They would break the curse, the steward promised. They would find the witch bride and bring her back in chains. But even their spells could not trace her, not while she wore the Lord's stolen visage. Days turned to weeks. The riders grew restless, the bounty swelled. Yet always, in the corners of their camps, in the shadows of their councils, a figure in black might appear, a face they knew, a voice they obeyed. And so Anwen moved among her hunters, learning their every plan, turning their every step to folly. She became more than prey. She became legend. They called her the Faceless Bride, the Cursed Widow, the Shadow of Eldwine. And through it all Anwen's vow burned bright. She would not only escape, she would undo him fully. For her people, for her mother, for all who had suffered beneath the Iron Wolf's reign. The hunted had become the unseen. And the Lord who once called her his, now shuddered alone in darkness, trapped in the emptiness where his face had been. For 3 days and nights, Anwen moved through the wild heart of the forest, farther from the reach of soldiers and their iron. The deeper she traveled, the more the land seemed to change beneath her feet. The trees grew taller, their trunks gnarled and thick with moss. The air smelled of earth and old rain. No road touched these paths, no torchlight pierced the green gloom. This was a place older than lords or banners, where the old ways still breathed. Her body ached from travel, but her will held strong. She dared not linger in the open, even with the stolen face to shield her. The forest offered another kind of refuge, one her mother had spoken of only in whispered tales. Of the hidden folk, allies of her bloodline, who dwelled beyond the reach of the iron wolf's grasp. By the fourth dawn, weary and footsore, Anwen reached the glen her mother had described. A hollow where 7 great oaks grew in a perfect ring, their branches woven so thickly above that the morning sun was but a dim silver mist. There she waited as her mother had taught her, laying bare her left palm upon the earth and speaking the old words in a low voice. Hours passed. No birds sang. No wind stirred the leaves. And then they came, silent as the mist itself. Figures in rough cloaks of green and brown, faces lined with age and wisdom, eyes bright with knowing. Forest dwellers. Witches some would call them. Guardians her mother had said. Keepers of the old ways. The eldest among them stepped forward, a woman with silver hair braided with oak leaves, her staff carved with strange symbols. She looked upon Anwen for a long moment. "You are Branwen's child?" she said softly. "Anwen of the river valley." Anwen's throat tightened. "I am." "You carry what should not have been woken." "I had no choice," Anwen answered. She drew aside her cloak and showed them the pouch tied at her thigh, the faintly pulsing blade within. The elders exchanged glances, grave and knowing. "You carry more than steel now," the elder woman said. "The face you wear, the power you hold, these are not gifts without price." Anwen bowed her head. "I will pay whatever price is needed." At that the elder gave a small, sad smile. "So said many before you." They took her in then, leading her through hidden paths deeper into the wood. There, beneath ancient boughs, a village of sorts had been woven from the forest itself. Huts of living trees, bridges of woven vine, hearths of stone and earth. No smoke rose to betray them. No road led near. Here the old ways lived on. For a week and more Anwen stayed among them. They fed her on root and herb, on berries and wild honey. They taught her to listen, to the wind through the leaves, to the murmur of streams, to the slow, patient language of stone and soil. They showed her the truth of the blade she bore, not a weapon of war but a vessel of power, a conduit for the will. "It was forged to bind and to break," the elder woman said. "It does not kill the flesh but severs what is deeper, name, face, spirit. You have done a great thing, child. And a terrible one." Each night, Anwen dreamed, strange vivid visions of shadow and flame. Of her mother's face, sorrowful and proud. Of the faceless lord, stumbling through darkness, groping for her. Of the power that now coursed within her blood. For the face she had taken was not wholly hers to keep. It shifted beneath her skin, a living thing. At times her reflection showed eyes too cold, a smile too sharp. At times when she spoke her voice was not her own. The elders warned her. "The longer you wear it, the deeper it roots," they said. "If you do not master it, it will master you." But mastery was not so simple. For even in this sanctuary the iron wolf's spirit hunted her still. Late at night, when the wind grew still and the fires burned low, she would feel it, a cold presence at the edge of the glen beyond the ring of oaks. No eyes to see, no lips to speak, but a hunger all the same. A will unbroken, bound to the void where his face had been. "He cannot pass the wards," the elder woman told her. "But neither will he stop. He is bound to you now, or rather to what you stole." Anwen shivered. "Then how do I end it?" The elder's gaze was solemn. "To end such binding you must either give it back, or break it utterly." Anwen's jaw tightened. "I will not give it back." "Then prepare yourself, child. For he will seek to reclaim it. Through dreams, through hunters, through any door you leave open." In the days that followed, Anwen trained with the elders. They taught her the deeper ways, to shape the magic, to guard her mind, to strengthen the wards around her. The blade too they taught her to wield not as a dagger but as a key, to open, to bind, to sever. Slowly her control grew. The face she wore no longer flickered so wildly. The hunger within her blood grew quieter, though never silent. But time was running thin. The Lord's spirit grew bolder. Each night the shadows pressed closer. The riders scoured the outer woods now, emboldened by dark whispers. Somewhere beyond, sorcerers worked their own spells to trace her. The hunt was not over. And Anwen knew she could not hide here forever. She had struck a great blow, yes. But to end this, to free her people, to shatter the Iron Wolf's hold, more must be done. One night, beneath the ring of oaks, she stood with the elder woman and spoke her vow anew. "I will not flee," she said. "I will not hide while my mother grieves, while my people suffer. Teach me what I must know. Show me the way." The elder placed her hands upon Anwen's brow. "You are bold, child, and brave. But know this, the deeper you walk these paths, the more you will change. You may not return as you were." Anwen's voice was steady. "Then so be it." For there was no turning back now. The Iron Wolf hunted her still. And in her heart the fire burned brighter than ever. The nights grew colder as summer's end crept upon the land. The forest darkened earlier each evening, long shadows pooling between the trees. In the hidden village beneath the ancient oaks, Anwen felt the change in her bones, in the air, in the ground itself. The elders murmured of shifting tides. Birds flew strange paths. The streams ran slower and thick with silt. The winds carried scents that did not belong. A gathering storm. Far to the east, in the heart of the Iron Wolf's stronghold, darker things stirred. Though faceless and broken, the Lord had not fallen entirely. His body remained bound in flesh, his will tethered to the remnants of his name, though severed from face and power. What had been taken still called to him through the void, through the old magics now awakened in his house. A hunger deeper than pride, older than conquest, burned within him now, a need to reclaim what was lost. Through the long days of his undoing, his sorcerers toiled. They dared rites forbidden even in ancient times, drawn from tattered scrolls sealed in stone vaults. Blood was spilled in secret chambers. Sigils of warding and seeking were carved in bone and ash. The steward, pale and trembling, oversaw each step, though dread gnawed at his heart. Each day he heard the hollow groans of his lord behind the sealed door, the rattling breath of a thing neither living nor dead. At last, after weeks of toil, the sorcerers declared their work begun. They could not undo what the bride had wrought, not yet. But they could seek her. They could call through the threads of magic she had drawn, through the face she had taken, through the binding that now chained lord to thief. In the deep of night, the rites began. Fires of green and black were lit. Incense choked the halls. The Lord was brought forth, cloaked, faceless, a shape of darkness barely held in flesh. He was set upon the stone altar, runes carved beneath him, the blade of ritual laid upon his chest. Chants rose, low, thrumming, discordant. Magic twisted in the air, thick as fog. In the heart of the forest, beneath the 7 great oaks, Anwen woke with a gasp. Her breath clouded in the cold night air, though no frost lay upon the ground. Her heart raced. She felt the pull, a thread winding through her chest, taut and sharp. A summons, a seeking. The elder woman was at her side in moments. "It has begun," she whispered. "He hunts you." Anwen's jaw set. "Then we must be ready." The days that followed were tense and restless. The forest seemed alive with unseen eyes. Strange creatures were glimpsed between the trees, pale hounds with 2 long limbs, black birds that did not blink, shadowy figures that melted when approached. The elders doubled their wards. Circles of salt and ash were laid anew. Talismans hung from every branch. But Anwen knew it would not be enough. Not forever. In secret, the elders taught her more of the blade and its ways. They showed her how to wield not only the face she had taken, but the deeper power beneath it, to bend will against will, to shield her mind, to strike it more than flesh. "You are bound to him now as he is to you," the elder warned. "When the final moment comes, it will not be blade or spell alone that decides the victor, but the strength of your will." And Anwen trained. Each dawn, each dusk. Her body grew lean and swift. Her mind sharpened. The face she wore no longer flickered. It moved as she willed. The hunger within her blood grew quiet, not gone but mastered for now. Yet even as she prepared, the storm gathered. From the border towns came whispers. Crops failing without cause, wells souring, children waking from dreams of faceless men. Merchants spoke of strange mists on the roads, of travelers vanishing without trace. In the villages, the old crones muttered of curses stirring in the land. And then at last, news came that chilled the heart of every forest dweller. The Iron Wolf had left his hall. The faceless lord, shrouded in cloaks and shadow, was moving, borne upon a black-draped litter, attended by his sorcerers. The full company of his riders had been summoned. No more hunting parties scattered in vain. Now an army marched, led by a will unbroken, seeking not to capture but to reclaim, to consume. "He comes for you," the elder woman said. "Not merely for revenge, for survival. What you hold is the core of him. Without it he withers. With it he may rise again. Anwen stood in the ring of oaks, her blade in hand. Then let him come. But deep within she knew the truth, she could not face him here. To meet him in the forest was to doom her allies. The wards would not hold against an army. Too many would fall. A choice lay before her, to flee deeper or to draw him out, to face him where the end might be her own. That night, beneath a sky veiled in cloud, Anwen stood alone and made her vow once more. I will not run, she whispered to the earth, to the trees, to the blood in her veins. I will end this, one way or another. In the east the storm clouds thickened. The final confrontation would come. And Anwen would be ready. The road to the Iron Wolf stronghold lay empty beneath a sky of iron. The wind moaned through the bare trees. No birds sang. No merchants passed. No peasants worked the fields. The land itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Anwen rode alone. Her cloak, black as night, billowed behind her. The blade was bound at her thigh, pulsing with slow, steady power. The face she wore was his, the cold, sharp visage of Lord Edrin, stolen and bound to her will. Behind her amber eyes, her heart burned fierce with purpose. She had left the sanctuary of the forest 3 days before, knowing the time for hiding was over. The Iron Wolf hunted her now with an army at his back. If she fled, her people would suffer. If she delayed, the storm would break upon them. The battle must be hers to choose, the ground, the moment, the truth. And so she rode toward the heart of his power. As she neared the outer villages, she saw the signs. Farms abandoned, doors shuttered, fields untended. Fear ruled the land. The common folk spoke of dark omens, of strange beasts in the night, of the faceless lord's hunger. In their eyes she saw despair. But also hope. The faint hope that somewhere the girl they called the faceless bride might stand against him. At the manor gates, the guards stood in grim ranks, swords drawn. But when Anwen approached, cloaked in her stolen face, they faltered. My lord, one whispered, pale with doubt. She dismounted, voice ringing clear and cold. Open the gates. The hour is at hand. They obeyed, fear blinding them to the truth beneath her mask. Within the stone walls of Eldwine Keep, soldiers and courtiers gathered in tense knots. The air was thick with unease. Whispers flew. The army had returned empty-handed. The Lord Sorcerers had failed to find the witch. And now he had come himself? As Anwen strode through the great hall, the crowd parted in silence. None dared meet her gaze. In the throne chamber, beneath high arches and banners heavy with dust, the faceless lord awaited. He stood cloaked in black, shrouded in a pall of shadow. His form wavered, blurred at the edges. Where his face should have been, nothing. A hollow void that drank the light. At his side, the sorcerers stood in a half-circle, grim and gaunt. The steward hovered nearby, wringing pale hands. Anwen entered, the echo of her steps sharp upon the stone. The guards at the walls tensed. The courtiers drew back. The faceless lord turned, sensing her approach. Though no eyes could see, no lips could speak, a cold hunger filled the chamber. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then, with a will forged in flame, Anwen drew back her hood. Gasps rang through the hall. Before them all, 2 lords. One in shadow, faceless. One whole, sharp-eyed, cold with stolen power. Murmurs rose among the nobles. What trick is this? Which is the true lord? She wears his face. The steward stammered, voice breaking. My lord, how can this be? From the shadows, the faceless one moved, arms outstretched. A low, hollow sound filled the air, not words but a raw cry of rage and hunger. Anwen stood tall, voice ringing out. He who ruled this land, who seized it with blood and fear, stands before you undone. His crimes laid bare. His power stolen not by me but by his own greed. She drew the blade, its runes flaring bright. This blade was forged of old, not for war but for justice. When he sought to take what was not his, my body, my will, my life, he was unmade. The crowd surged with whispers. Some stepped forward, others back. The captain of the guard stood frozen, torn between duty and doubt. The sorcerers hissed in unison. Their leader raised a staff, dark magic coiling about it. You dare, he cried. You, a thief of faces, a breaker of oaths. You will be bound again, your will crushed, your power returned. Anwen's gaze locked upon him. Try then. The chamber darkened. The torches guttered. Magic swelled, thick as smoke. The faceless lord lunged, a shape of shadow and hunger. His will struck at her, cold, crushing, seeking to tear the face from her, to reclaim what had been lost. Anwen staggered, her vision blurring. Pain lanced through her skull. The blade flared in her grip, the runes burning bright. She summoned all she had learned, the training in the forest, the strength of her vow, the fire of her blood. "No," she cried, voice ringing through stone and shadow. "I will not yield. You took what was not yours. You bound me, sought to break me, and now your crimes will be known." The two wills clashed, her light against his darkness. Magic surged between them, a storm of force. The banners tore from the walls. The stone itself shuddered. One by one the court watched in awe and dread. And then, slowly, the tide turned. The hunger within the faceless one faltered. The light of the blade seared through the darkness. The bonds of old magic held. With a final cry, Anwen thrust forward, not the blade alone but her will, her truth. "You are undone," she shouted. "Before your people, before this land, your power ends here." The faceless lord staggered, shadows peeling away. His form shrank, the hollow void collapsing inward. A great silence fell. When it ended, only a crumpled cloak remained upon the stone. No face, no voice, no will. Gone. Anwen stood trembling, breath ragged, the blade lowered. The court knelt, not in fealty but in awe. The steward rose, pale and shaken. What is your will?" Anwen's voice was steady. "No more false lords. No more fear. This land will be free." And as dawn broke over the hills, the banners of the Iron Wolf were torn down. The truth of his crimes, of his greed, his hunger, his fall, spread from the castle to the farthest village. The people spoke of the faceless bride, the girl who had stood against the darkness, who had unmade the Lord with her will. And so the tale began. But for Anwen the road was not yet done. For magic left its marks. And though victory was won, the blade still pulsed with old power. Her path lay ahead, uncertain, unwritten. But free.